How's it going, knife nerds? Today we are going to take a look at my Something Obscene Company J-Cape version 3.5, designed by Felix at Something Obscene and produced and manufactured by Riot Knives. And the first thing I want to do is give you some eye candy, because this is one gorgeous freaking knife. And what we have here is this beautiful drop point compound ground blade with the belt satin bevels and hand rubbed satin flats, and the blade steel is CPM 20 CV. You can just barely see that steel indicator there, and of course I've already fingerprinted the finish here. And then we have this beautiful anodized gold titanium hardware all around, titanium gold backspacer, pocket clip, and all of the body screws are all titanium. And yeah, man, this thing is just beautiful, beautiful knife. So a little bit of backstory here. Something Obscene Company is owned by Felix Archibald. I think I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but you guys can figure that out, I'm sure. Just a great American family-owned company, small business, and they have used WE knives a lot to produce many of their designs over the years. And just recently they went with Riot to do the V3 and V3.5 J-Capes. Now, there was some changes from the V3 to the V3.5, and from my understanding, they actually moved the detent ball a little bit closer to the blade on the version 3.5, which would, make you have to travel a little bit less far to get up onto the blade there with that, so that, I'm already up on the detent there. So that's an interesting change. And of course they did massive weight reduction on the V3.5, which was not present on any previous J-Capes. So let me get in here and show you this. Now, these are some extremely deep milling pockets in these scales, and it is awesome. So they did a phenomenal job weight relieving this knife, and the feel of it is absolutely beautiful after that weight relief that they did there. So let me tell you a little bit about where I acquired this knife, because I was not lucky enough to get in on the original drop for this knife, so I had to pick it up on the secondhand market. And I chased one for a couple of days. I was looking all over the internet, tapping all the usual resources for aftermarket high-end knives. And I came across a YouTube review from a little channel called Hero Sticks. And he had just acquired like 3 of these J-Cape version 3.5s. He purchased them from the German dealer that had them in stock. And so he got these delivered from Germany, which I'm sure, came at a premium price to him, because you got to pay that extra, VAT charge and all that stuff coming from, being imported from Germany. And so, he had mentioned in his review that he was going to go ahead and sell one of these, or 2 of them actually. I think he sold the other one to another YouTuber. So I emailed him and got in touch with him and made him an offer for the knife. And lo and behold, I was lucky enough to acquire this from Hero Sticks, and he was a pretty fun guy to chat with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a link to Hero Stick's YouTube down in the description here, and you guys can stop in and maybe give him a sub too, because he's a pretty cool dude, and he reviews nice knives as well. So check that out. And then I'm also going to put a link down there, of course, to the Something Obscene Company and the Something Obscene Company Instagram, so you can follow them there. And so you know, make everything a little bit easy to find for you. I did also get in on the last drop for the version 3.5, which is due to show up in late August to early September. They should be starting to be delivered, and I went ahead and bought into that pre-order before I acquired this knife. I didn't want to wait the 4 months to find out what this knife is really like, because I've never owned a J-Cape before. This is my first one. And you know, when I found out that they had gone to using Riot for the J-Cape, I absolutely knew I had to get in on one at that point in time, because Riot is obviously one of my favorite manufacturers out there for these higher end production knives. And so I was very lucky to acquire this from Hero Sticks, and I thank him greatly for sending this along and giving it a new home. Now, let's talk about one of the very standout features of this knife, which is the ring. As everybody that owns a J-Cape knows, when you deploy this blade, it makes this insane ringing sound. And I'm sure my cell phone microphone here is probably not going to capture that noise to the best of its ability, but suffice to say that it's in person, it's a whole nother world. It just rings. I might have some other footage that I've filmed inside the cab of my vehicle that better accentuates the acoustics of the sound that this knife makes on lockup, and I'll try to roll that in at some point in the video and let you hear what that really sounds like with better acoustics. Now, the action on this knife, this being the flipper version, it does also come in a thumb stud version. The action on this knife, absolutely phenomenal, just beautiful. I mean, boom, smooth as butter, drop shutty as could be, flies out, just rockets out like crazy. And the flipper tab is extremely comfortable. It is a rather large flipper tab, but the way that this angle slopes back here, it's just buttery smooth. One of the best flipper tabs that I have messed with in a while. I'd put it up there. Whoops, hit the camera there. I'd put it up there with the Koenig Arias Gen 4 flipper tabs as far as comfort and ease of deployment. Yeah, just a beautiful flipper tab. I really probably, when I get my V3.5 from the pre-order, which is going to be this same satin blade, but with an, you know, with a black scales. When I get that, I'm probably gonna take it over to the Something Obscene. It's called Obscene EDC, which is the Facebook group for, you know, it's like a fan group type thing for Something Obscene knives. I'm probably gonna take it over there and, you know, attempt to trade it to somebody for a thumb stud version 3.5, because since I already have this flipper now, I'd also like to try the thumb stud version, which is, you know, kind of the more popular of the J-Capes, I would say at this point. A lot of people really want the thumb stud versions, and they were the first to sell out on this last pre-order. The thumb studs were gone in a hurry, and the flippers remained up there for a few weeks. So, you know, people really jumped at the thumb stud versions of this knife, and so that's pretty cool. Anyways, so that being said, this knife, it's just, it's it's absolutely glorious. um, the flipping action, the ergos, this knife, when you first see it, it looks kind of blocky, and I typically don't go for that blocky, squared off aesthetic on most knives, but it works so well on the JK. I I just can't even begin to explain how good this feels in hand. It's the perfect size of knife for my hands. I have a medium to large size hand, and when I get a hold of this, that thumb ramp, that aggressive jimping, and the way that this fits my hand is just flawless. There's no extra handle sticking way out here that I don't need, and it's not too short. I'm getting all four fingers on there with a little bit of extra space there, and all the chamfering around the edges, those nice 45-degree chamfers all the way around the edges, makes it feel far less blocky than it appears to be at first glance. And it's just, it's a stupid comfortable ergonomic knife in hand. Absolutely love everything about this. The pocket clip, some people might think that's a little bit of a hot spot because of the pokey corners on that lightning bolt clip, but it's really not. I honestly barely feel that clip in hand, and really the only part that I do feel is kind of the tip of the clip right there, which is a little bit pointy. I feel that a little bit, but barely. And so phenomenal ergonomics, just beautiful. That being said, the action of course did not come out of this out of the box like this. I did take this apart and tuned it, and I installed skiff bearings. I believe I have some images of the disassembly of this knife when I had it taken apart, where you can better see the milling pockets inside the scales, and the comparison of the skiff bearings to the original stock bearings, which it does take 1/4 inch size bearings. And so I took pictures of all that, and I'm going to try to roll it in right here so you can see that. That being said, the detent on this knife was dialed in a little too strong for me out of the box. It wasn't drop shutty. It was like half drop shutty. Like, I'd get like right there, and it'd be, kind of got to shake it down, and it, maybe a little bit stiff on the flipper deployment. And so all I did was tune the lock bar, and I just backed it off just a hair. Like, I backed the detent, the lock bar off to the point to where I couldn't even really tell that it had moved, from where it previously was, but I could feel it. I knew I had moved it just a little bit, and that was all I wanted, was just a hair. And after I did that, it's a guillotine drop shutter now, and man, smooth as butter. No gritty feeling from the detent, because it did feel, there was a little bit too much friction with the detent ball pressing hard against the tang of the blade there. A little bit too much friction because the lock bar was just a little too stiff. Okay, I did adjust that to my preferences. Not to say that it was a bad lock bar adjustment, it was just a little too stiff for my liking, so I did adjust that, and I'm super glad I did, because man, oh man, is this beautiful now. Just a flawless action. Lockup still very solid, a little bit early, very solid though. Let's see if I can get a better image of that. And of course, blade centering was not affected because we've got Riot perfection here. And God almighty, what a beautiful flipper this knife is. You know, I understand why some people are getting a little bit of flipper fatigue and they're looking for those thumb stud knives, and the J-Cape having thumb studs available makes it pretty desirable. But God, this flipper action is phenomenal as well. So, you know, if you're into the J-Cape, trust me, you're going to want both versions. I'm definitely trying to get both versions of this knife. I want multiples of this knife. I probably own 2 or 3 of these at least. You know, they come in so many variations. You have all of the Damastil full dress, half dress versions that just dropped that were a little bit out of my price range. I definitely can't afford them, but they're out there. And then you have the Damastil. You know, they have the Nichols Damascus versions, and then they have the Damastil versions. The Damastil versions are a little more affordable if you can pick them up on the aftermarket for about 800 bucks, is what I've noted that they've been going for lately. And so your Damastil is a good option there for those of us that can't afford the full dress. And so that's pretty cool. You know, thumb studs, flippers, Damascus, Damastil, you know, different colors, so many different versions of this knife available. And this last run of V3.5s was apparently the final run of V3.5. I will assume that Felix is eventually going to do a V4 with Riot. I hope he does, because man, this is absolutely just knocked out of the park. And I cannot imagine that We Knives quite, you know, lived up to the build quality that the Riot has. The Riot version of the J-Cape came to the table with, because this thing is freaking awesome. That being said, I don't want to talk your ears off about how great this knife is. So I hope I haven't really missed anything here important. It is a roughly 3.5 inch blade. I don't have a scale. I can't give you the exact weight. The specs on the internet for this knife are few and far between. All that I come up with, I had to open up this Something Obscene Facebook page to get basic specs on the V3.5. It says total length 8 inches and a cutting edge of 3.5 inches. And so that would put this blade just a little under 3.5 inches from, you know, tip to handle there. And, you know, the size for me, just a perfect size knife. Not too big, not too small, right in that realm. It really carries nice in pocket. I've got no complaints about the pocket clip. That goes in and out of pocket pretty well. And I don't get any snags on most of my pants with it. I've carried this quite a bit. I've had it for well over a month now. And yeah, just an absolutely phenomenal knife. And I can't wait to get my next J-Cape. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you in the next review. Later.